Hi, and welcome to Common Issues That Students with ADD and ADHD May Face When Transitioning to College. Want to introduce yourself?
Good morning. Yes, my name is Brandon Slade, and I run a company called Mentoring Through Movement, and we help students with ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, and other executive functioning challenges. We help them be successful, and we notice that college is like the big time, really, really hard for our students to transition. And as someone who failed out of college myself and then had to work myself back, I feel pretty qualified to help out with this subject.
And I'm Stacy Hernandez. I run the Best You College Admissions Consulting, where I help students through the college admissions process. As someone that struggled extremely in high school with I think a 2.5 GPA until my senior year. Yeah. I was diagnosed with learning disabilities my senior year and have two children with dyslexia and ADHD. I definitely work with a lot of students that represent the same backgrounds and a lot of experience. The reason why we are presenting today is because we have found some really key issues that are important for families to know when it comes to this transition to college. So we're going to share a lot of key pieces that can help the student and parents understand, even as high school students, understanding the future of transitioning to college and what can really help college be an easier transition. So why don't you, do you want to read that?
Well, so one of the biggest issues for our kids and how we explain it is when you're in middle school, you have structure is like a 7 and workload is like a 3. And then in high school, structure is a 5 and workload's a 5. I remember when I taught middle school, our kids couldn't sneeze or look the wrong way without me being all over them. Mm-hmm. The challenge is when you get to a college, your structure is a 1 and your workload's a 9. And it's how do our kids manage that when they're not used to? How do they manage the social aspect, the academic piece, if they're playing sports, in a fraternity, sorority, all these other things going on. And that's why we see that, according to the Washington Post, 40% of our students don't finish college in 4 years, meaning they have to stay for an extra year to 2 years. I think the average is getting close to 6 years.
6 to 7, yeah.
6 to 7, or they fail out immediately just because they can't handle the independence with something like ADD or dyslexia.
Yep. And they're not getting the right direction. A lot of times they're not utilizing resources, which we're going to talk about, and thinking of those pieces to help make the process more manageable. They're not being advised to take summer classes to help them graduate on time. There's a lot of pieces to it. And there's so many pieces that we're going to talk about today that can help avoid graduating after 5 years or 6 years.
Yeah, I'm still paying off my mistake. I know.
Yes,
but I know a lot of us are. So the goal is to get them through, and then quite often our students are so successful in this world due to their creative thinking or their different thinking about it, or their very good social skills. And so we just want to get them through in the most effective, efficient way possible.
Yes. So one of the biggest issues being that we're losing too many talented students, and a lot of it has to do with this lack of structure. That they're coming into adulthood and having to kind of figure things out on their own, and there's a lot of other issues that we're going to go through that are going to help us to dive into it. So really, first one, lack of structure.
Yeah. So when you have ADD or ADHD or dyslexia, the most important thing you could have is routines and structure in your life. I know as an adult, a functioning adult with it, my routines have to be unbelievably. I have to have a really, really structured day. And so it's how do we teach our kids to start to manage this on their own before they're thrown in the fire? So when that workload gets bumped up to a 9 and structure's a 1, what routines are you going to have in your life to make sure that you get through tough times?
Yeah. And going into college where students are scheduling, they have 4 classes rather than a full school day of classes, and then their sports or then their activity. In college, it's just the classes. And then they figure out when to study, and they figure out if they want to do an activity, and they're really just thrown in there. Yeah. So this lack of structure piece is something that we're finding is to be the number one struggle when students are transitioning to college. And even students that don't even have ADD or ADHD, they're finding that transition to be challenging the first semester. as well. So how do you build those structures when parents are out of the picture and students are kind of managing that independently on their own?
Yeah, that's like the question. So first of all, just to define it, we need academic structure, and then we need other structures in our life. So we see a sleep routine, nutrition, exercise. Exercise is the miracle drug for our population. And then these studying routines. So for example, we see if a kid goes to the library from noon to 1 every day, if they build that into their life. Even on days when they don't have anything and they're working ahead and they're reviewing notes, we see those kids who are very successful. Another routine that we have is our students that utilize office hours. That is such a game changer. Our population is very good with social skills and very likable. And if we double down on those strengths and get to every single office hours and build that into our routine, our scores skyrocket. And the teacher knows you're invested, which is huge for our population.
Yeah, and this is important to know that pretty much every college and university, they have a policy of professor office hours. So any class that a student takes in college, the office hours are pretty mandatory.
Yes.
And so whether it's a lecturer that's coming in for an evening class or a full-time professor, that is usually a university policy at any school in the U.S. So that is why the office hours are significant, because they're always offered.
Yeah, well, and a lot of these skills that quote unquote good students get intuitively, like I should go talk to my professor and get some help. I should study with the person who's giving me the test, or the person who's grading my paper. I should have a rough draft ready for them. We need to teach that to our students.
Yes.
They don't get it explicitly. So it's breaking down when we go to office hours, why we go to office hours, taking that initial syllabus. And if it's Tuesday at 1 p.m., like we just build that into our schedule. Every Tuesday at 1 p.m., we're going to office hours. And that's just kind of what we do.
Wow.
Then they figure out that their life is much easier. Instead of trying to focus on their own or doing all this on their own, they figure out that 1 hour in office hours saves them 2 hours on their own.
Yes. So a student can absolutely create this structure and still have fun. So meaning if you still want to have your social time, your party time, that could be Friday night from 5 to 8, or whatever it is. Well, it's a lot later. 5 till. That's a 5 to 8. That's our schedule.
Yeah, we'll call it 5 till. That's always the message with our kids is we steal the Navy SEAL model, discipline equals freedom. If you're disciplined enough to go to your office hours or go to your library study time from 12 to 1 every day, you're going to have a lot more freedoms than you see other students who are cramming. We also don't have the luxury of cramming. Yeah. It's just not something we can do with our attention. So we talk a lot about that discipline equals freedom. We want you to have more free time while succeeding, but you got to discipline yourself to do that first. And that includes exercise and sleep as well. Yes.
Crucial. It is, as you said, the drug that needs to be, that is the crucial piece. And I will tell you, any college student, that the number one stress reliever is getting to the gym. Exercising in some way, whether it's walking outside or doing something.
Yeah. People always make fun of me, but sometimes we just say you just need to lift heavy things. You're not feeling well. It sounds like such a meathead thing to say, but it works really well for a lot of our kids. They just need to lift things and get those endorphins flowing, and they feel a lot better.
Yeah.
They feel a lot better. Another huge issue is that often our students are on IEPs and 504s in high school, and they don't really have this level of oversight in college. So that transition without a case manager can be challenging. And them learning that they need to access their own resources versus having someone watch over them is a huge difference.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that families automatically assume when transitioning to college is that evaluation is going to be taken and the student will automatically get the services like extended time, private testing rooms, note-taking, whatever the services or the IEP that the student gets in high school, they're automatically assumed they'll get in college. That is not true at all. And something that's really important to understand is that some colleges require updated evaluations. And so it has to be 1 to 2 years old when transitioning into college. And so one of the things that I advise families to do is make sure when a student has targeted a couple of top choices in their senior year and they've applied, then or even before they apply, talk to the disability resource centers at those schools to ask, what does it take to get accommodations? Do I need new updated evals? Do I not? Do I just need a letter from my school counselor? What do you need? Do you just want to see my IEP, or do you need to see a formal evaluation again?
Awesome.
And if that's the case, when the student transitions to college and they enroll at an institution the summer before, with this idea of not having a case manager, the summer before, the student should be reaching out to the Disability Resource Center, submitting the paperwork that's required, making sure that those services are approved, and right when they get to school, going to that office, and you have to proactively get the services you want. So I chose the college I chose. Well, I was a transfer student. And when I transferred, I chose a college that had a very, very strong disability resource office. And that office actually is known nationwide. It's Northeastern University, and they're known nationwide because they do a lot of research too. But that office was so amazing that when I would go there, I had to get letters to then give to each professor each semester if I wanted to get extended time. So I would have to hand deliver a letter to say, here's Stacy's support services. There may be a note taker that comes in, or she may be asking for extended time, please provide it to her. But I had to go every semester back to the center to get whatever support services I needed. If I wanted a private room, my school also offered special classes. So for example, I have a pretty severe the learning disability. I got to be in a college algebra class my last year of senior year, because there's no way I wanted to take any math before that. Yeah. But, and it was a special class that was taught by the Disability Resource Center. So it was for students who learned math like me. So that's a very exceptional case, but it was me having to be proactive. So this idea of not accessing the resources, a lot of times the resources are there in college, but you have to structure your time. You have to be the one to go out there and make those resources happen for you.
Absolutely. So, well, and also teaching your student how to access those resources. So sometimes common sense isn't so common with a lot of our students. So teaching them, giving them the language, and actually having scripts provided to them of how to talk to your professor. Wow. Like, exact scripts, like 1 week before the exam, go into your professor and say something along the lines of, I know this is a challenging exam. Sometimes I need extra time when writing. How should I structure this? Should I come in early? Should I stay late? Should I come to office hours? Just giving them that language is very beneficial for our students.
Yeah, that's actually amazing. I didn't think about the structure. Also, academic advisors. So you have the Disability Resource Center, or whatever the school calls it, disability services, or whatever they call it. But there's also academic advisors. And the academic advisors help you plan out your classes, kind of like your school counselor does in high school. And so I didn't know about an academic advisor until my first semester of senior year. And I wish I had known about that, because then I could have plotted out my classes, which would help to graduate on time, because then I knew exactly what classes I had to take and when, rather than just reading it from a book. So if you can encourage students, if you're the parent or you're the student, starting with the academic advisor the summer before you enter school, so you can talk to that advisor and plan out the classes, making sure you have a manageable load. And that transitions us into this next this next issue.
It's such a great point, is starting college off correctly. Because when we see most of our kids fall apart, the first 2 weeks of college are the greatest weeks of their life. Nothing's ever been better. And then the wheels start to fall off a little bit when workload ramps up and we haven't developed those routines. So the most important thing we can teach them is those disciplines and routines.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of our end from the executive functioning piece. But from your end, do you have any advice on what that first semester course load should look like?
Yes. And I see a lot of students get it wrong and have a really challenging first semester. First semester, I always feel you should have a lighter load rather than a heavier load. It's like when we talk to students about high school classes. All right, should you take the AP or should you take the advanced class? Should you not take an AP in this subject? It's all about healthy balance. And so the important piece is that students select the healthy balance of classes. So if a student wants to take a subject that's more challenging for the student, I either encourage them not to take it or take a lighter load so they can take that heavier class but still manage the rest of the classes. Typically, a student has to take 4 classes their first, each semester. Some will say 5, some will say 4, but 3 typically is a part-time student. So 4 is a full-time student at most universities and colleges. So it's important to then pick, and it's 2 things. One, picking the right time of day and picking the right classes. So if you're not strong in sciences and you decide to dive right into a college level biology and calculus, maybe that's not a best use of your time. Maybe you take more of your academic strengths and maybe one class that's more of a weak point for you. But what colleges, I notice, automatically start to do is they automatically will schedule a student for those 8 a.m. classes because they're trying to force students to not party at night, get them up and get them to class on time. 8 a.m. is a disaster for most students, especially freshman year.
Well, and for our students too, quite often their clock is flipped. So when you look at a typical ADHD student, they don't function before 8 a.m. And so until they develop those habits and those routines and figuring out how to be a real person, I would say take it easy first semester and then gradually work yourself up. If we need to do summer classes, that's fine too.
Yeah.
But just ease into it because we see so many students have such a hard time that first semester.
Absolutely. And so with that with the timing and with the flip of the timing, even though some schools will automatically schedule you for classes that first semester, go right to the academic advisor during the summer and plan the class schedule with the academic advisor rather than letting the school choose the classes for you. Walk through with someone at the university, all right, I can't take math my first semester, or I can take math, but it has to be this level. I cannot take an 8 a.m. It has to be. So knowing your time frame is something that's going to be really important.
I mean, it's so much of it's about advocating, which is what our students have a hard time, which comes back to that script piece. So helping them before they go off to school, establishing those scripts is what needs to be done.
Yeah. So we're going to go into more suggestions now. As we've been saying, kind of some of the challenges and issues, we're going to really, again, some of this is a repeat, but it's really important for us to repeat what we're saying in terms of the suggestions that help students.
And the biggest thing I know I touched on earlier is routines. So students that have successful routines, they are successful in school. And the way to do that is, I guess we should start with studying routines. So the best way to study, and it's just conditioning if you've taken psychology, it's same time, same place every day. So what is that place works for you? And starting to figure that out before you go to school. So are you a library, dead silent person, or are you a coffee shop where you need a buzz type person? And then once you figure that out, same time, same place until we establish that routine. 2 p.m. in the library every single day from 2 to 3 I'm working. And my phone's off, and that's just what I'm doing. So that routine is essential.
So there's not one particular environment that a student thrives in. It really is an individual piece. Because sometimes I'm like telling my student, get the radio off or get the TV off when you're studying. But I notice that sometimes kids need noise. I mean, is there a common, do you find a certain thing?
Yeah, I mean, self-assessment's a superpower.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of our students lack early in the process is that self-assessment. I know how I study, and it's a very different probably than how you study. So I don't have all the answers. That's a really individual thing.
It's an individual piece.
But starting to dig in, and the second semester of high school, it's like if a student gets an A on a math test, starting to figure out how did that happen? Why? And so they can start becoming self-aware and realizing that it's not an accident. Helping your student and starting to drill into them that routine, same time, same place, every single day. And then emphasizing those routines, like I said, with exercise, sleep, and other areas of life. Office hours is one of the number one indicators of success with students with disabilities. So really just establishing those routines.
The other thing that was successful for me in college is my father told me to do this, but he's like, always sit in the front, because then the professor is going to get to know you. Yeah. And it's just going to help. It's going to help that relationship. It's going to help you stay more focused.
If your teacher knows you're invested, you've already won the game.
Yeah.
We call it playing the game of school. And I know it's not a game for a lot of people, but if you understand the rules and your teacher knows you're invested, a lot of times we will really go out of our way to help you out. So for our students with disabilities that may struggle, it's what needs to be done.
Absolutely, 100%.
It's what needs to be done.
100%.
Another routine that's very successful is taking time, usually on Sunday evening or Monday morning, to map out your week.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that's in a planner or electronic or however that looks, but just taking the time to go through your syllabuses, to go through the teacher's Blackboard or D2L or Canvas or whatever they're using, whatever portal they're using, and block out your week. So that way you're not showing up to your study session and wondering what to do. Teaching your students how to break those into small chunks as well. So if there's a research paper due Friday, what does Monday look like? Is it finding 5 resources online? What does Tuesday look like? Is it creating an outline? What does Wednesday look like? And just backwards planning our way into success. Because again, that's something that a lot of our students don't get intuitively, and they need to block out time to do that. So having that routine. With that is scheduling social time and fun. So you don't burn out too. Knowing that you need to be done with all your homework by noon on Sunday. So scheduling that in so that way you can have noon until on to do the things that you love to do.
Yes. That's a really important one. So why don't you mention this one? Because this one, you're reiterating basically everything you've been talking about. So it's important.
It's funny how we send our kids off to school. We send them to these beautiful, prestigious universities, and they don't take care of their basic needs. No. They forget to sleep. They forget nutrition. They forget exercise. They forget all these things. So the recommendation we give to families is before they go off to school, whether it's the spring before, the summer, just starting to develop these routines and talk about these routines at home. Like what 3 days a week are you going to exercise? When are you going to go to bed? And the helpless part is they're off at school. And so we don't know if it's being done, but all we can do is instill all this information and knowledge in them, and then whether they decide to do it or not, that's on them. But at least they know and they understand, which so many of our students don't.
Yes, they learn the hard way.
Yeah, absolutely.
They really.
Absolutely.
So this piece, again, reiterating that selecting the right classes at the right time is significant. I'm a fan of summer classes, and I know it means for a lot of work for students and not getting necessarily a break. But a lot of colleges that offer summer classes have 2 summer sessions. So one maybe for the month of June, maybe one for the month of July, and then you get August off. So there are ways of spreading out the course load so a student is not overwhelmed. And there are ways of taking the classes that are right for you. So again, at least first semester, making sure you're taking a healthy balance and you're taking the classes at the right times, trying to figure out what those right times of day. Every time I had a 1:35 p.m. meeting or class, I fell asleep. Every single class, and I didn't figure that out until right now. So I would have eaten lunch and then maybe had a 3 o'clock class rather than a 1:35 class. So that's something that, knowing your schedule and when you thrive is really important, because that will create so much better success.
Self-assessment is the superpower.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that was a good first step for us to kind of jump in and just talk about, just real briefly, an overview of what we teach our kids. And obviously there's a lot of little steps that go into getting these big tasks taken care of and having that discipline to do what needs to be done. But I think that's a good start for an overview.
Yeah. So Brandon's business, Mentoring Through Movement, actually supports college students through the process of creating these routines, creating these structures, and helping college students go through the college life step by step and really creating that self-awareness, but also being successful in college. And also he helps support high school students in the same way. And with me, The Best You, what I help is trying to help students find the right fit colleges and trying to give advice on course selection and things like that so students can be successful in college as well. So Mentoring Through Movement is mentoringthroughmovement.com. The Best You is thebestyou.net. We're here to support your students with ADD and ADHD, and reach out to us if you have questions or would like to learn more about our services.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks so much for taking the time. Super grateful.
Thank you.